Welcome to this tutorial. Today I'm going to share with you how to use conditional formatting. As we know, formatting refers to the colour of the cells, the content of the cells, the style of the font used, and the colour of the font, and the colour of the fill. If I just recalculate this, or on your keyboard you press F9, you can see what's happening is different pixels, well, it appears to be different pixels, different cells in this image are being revealed so that they're not being filled. So what the term is referred to as conditional formatting. And although this is a very simple example, it just gives you some idea of what we're doing today. I'm going to minimize that. Now here is another example. So what I've done here is I've got an image back in the background and I want to slowly reveal some of those, some portions of that image, and so maybe the person doing this could guess what the correct answer is. I'll just remove my answers there. And so you can see there's nothing revealed at the moment. And when I put in my answer, so I can put in a 2, that cell will be revealed. And in this one, if I put in the wrong answer, nothing is revealed. So if I put in the correct answer and a cell is revealed. That is the concept of what we're going to look at today. On the left, we have 9 cells with some of them coloured in with a colour, purple. And behind that you can see a flower which is partially covered up. And on the right I've got the flower with no shading and no borders around those cells. If I click on the calculate button here, you can see what is happening is these cells are changing, and what we're doing is using today conditional formatting. So each of these cells, if I click on this one now, you'll see up here in the formula bar, we're asking a question. If cell F3, now F3 is the cell over here that's been activated or highlighted, and at the moment has a value of a 1. If we're saying that that value is 1, then we will display a full stop. Otherwise, we want a comma. So what I have done here is, just so you can understand what's going on here, based on the value of this cell here, whether it's a 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, if it's a 1 though, this cell will not be covered by a fill. Now, to reveal the image at the back here, so I will get it into how that actually happens with conditional formatting. What we need to start with and understand is I've inserted into the background of the sheet. So I've got an image of a flower that is actually sitting behind anything that is typed in those cells. So over here you can see I haven't put any fill into it. If I go into the formatting, you'll see that there is no fill and there are no borders. So over here I have selected a portion of an image that's in the background. If I just scroll down for a moment, you'll see that this image is being repeated throughout the whole sheet. It's been multiple copies of it again and again and again. And so the trick with this particular activity is you need to find an image that is not too large, and you'll need to then select an area of your sheet that you want to display. So that will also require you resizing rows and columns. Just to demonstrate that, I'm going to drop the the row depth here, and you'll see that what has happened is that now this cell is a lot more elongated, we could say. And down the bottom you get this overlapping of where the image starts again. So what I've had to do is I've inserted the image, which I'll show you how to do in a moment. I've inserted that image and then selected that area of the sheet that will give me just the portion of the flower that I want to use for this activity. So to start with, we need to put in a background to the sheet, as I said. So to do that, with a new worksheet open, you go up to Page Layout, and there's an option there to insert an image. So if I delete that now, you'll see there's no background. I've just got a white background. If I go click on background now and then I go looking for it, now I've given you a file which is the cactus orchid flower JPEG file, and that's the image size is approximately 600 by 400 pixels or 450 pixels. So I'll insert that and you'll see that it is duplicating across the whole sheet. I come down here and reveal a larger area, and I put in no fill. You'll get maybe a clearer idea. See how it's all duplicating? So when we don't want to see that, we cover it up. We don't want to see all these duplications. We only want to reveal a certain area of it. And as you would have already noticed in your spreadsheet, by default, the row depth is approximately 70 pixels. Excuse me. The column width is approximately 81 pixels and so forth. So they will need to be adjusted according to your image that you choose. For this exercise, if it's the first time you've done conditional formatting like this, I would strongly suggest, you use the sample file that I've given you, which is this cactus flower. And you will need to readjust the size of those columns and rows. So I'll just undo that because I've got it set up nicely now. So having got your image into your worksheet as a background, now I'm going to remind you, you need to pause this regularly. The idea here is that you watch a little bit of it, you pause it, and then you go and do it, and you'll come back. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to select these cells that I've already decided this is the section of that image that I want, and I'm going to right click and go down to Format, Cells, and I'm going to select Borders, and I want Outline and Inside. That just purely helps you make it a little bit clearer what is going on, and we'd actually later on don't need to have those lines, but for now it's a good idea. And if you're using this technique in, say, a quiz or a game that you're making in Excel, I would suggest that you might want many more rows and columns so that you have a situation revealing many more parts of an image than what I've simply demonstrated here. So in this case, I've only got 2 cells revealed, but it's pretty obvious what the image is, and you can have unlimited number of cells there. But the principle will be the same, which I'm going to show you now. So I've made those cells quite clear, and now I want to insert a fill and a different fill to my background. So a right click, Format Cells, and I'm going to fill it and just choose another color. You can choose whatever color you like. That doesn't really matter. The next thing is what I've done here is I'm going to base the value of these cells on the value of this cell here. So these are what the behavior is going to happen with these cells will be based on whether it's a 1, 2, or 3 in this case. And you, of course, can randomly make it between 1 and 20 if you want. It just depends how many cells that you are using that you want to display your image. So in this simple exercise, I've got a ran between, sitting in this cell here, between 1 and 3 to keep it really simple. Then I go to my cell to randomly select the cell, and my formula will be, I'm going to ask, we always start a formula with an equals. We say equals if, open bracket. We're asking if this cell here has a value. So we say equals 1 in this case. So I'm saying if this cell equals a 1, comma, then if that's true, what I want to display is, and because it's text I want to put in there, I'm going to use the question mark. And then in this case I'll use a full stop and another question mark. And I will explain why we're using the full stop in a moment, comma. And then if it's not a 1, then I will use a comma, comma, and close a quotation mark and close that bracket. So you can just make out there that there is a little dot in the corner. And if I come back here, I can actually make it a bit larger so that you can see that a bit better. So at the moment it's a comma because that's a value of 2. It's not a value of a 1. If it was a 1, and if I just keep doing that, there we go, it's a 1 now, and so I've got a full stop. So that's how that part works. Now what we want to do, I would suggest, is we would make this an absolute value, F3, an absolute value. So by now I would expect you would know how to do that. You can use the shortcut on your keyboard, the F4, and that will put in the dollar signs, or you can type those dollar signs, a dollar before the F and a dollar before the 3 in this case. Now make sure that your formula is looking at the right cell. And if you don't have already this formula in a cell that we're referencing, then that's your formula, the equals ran between 1 and 3. So we're just looking for a very simple solution here to understand how to use conditional formatting. So we're going to have a random number there, and then the values in these squares will be dependent on that value. So now that I've got an absolute value up here, I can copy that, Control C. I can copy that and I can randomly paste it in. So I'm going to paste it in here and here and here. So let's keep calculating to see how much I've got. A 1, and you can see that there's a full stop there, there and there. I can paste it into other cells and then just change the 1 to a 2. So that's another way of doing it, and that can speed up the process when you have many cells, because as I said, we're only working with a value between 1 and 3 in this case. So I might make that a 3. Down here I've still got another one, so let's make that a value of a 3. And I've still got 2 more cells that I haven't put this into, so I'm going to paste the cell in there and put that, make that a 2. And this one, make it a value of 2 as well. Now I'm going to make this a lot smaller, a bit smaller anyway, so at the moment it's not quite so obvious. Now at the moment all of these cells fill with a colour of green. So ideally we don't want to see the figure or the character that's in each of those cells. We don't want to see full stops and we don't want to see the commas. So we can't see them over here. We don't want to see them here. So what we're doing, I've selected all of those cells and I'm going to do a right click and I'm going to format. I'll just get a bit higher so you can see that format. And under the font, I need to change the colour of it. That's the default colour. And in this case it was this colour. So now I can't see what is actually displayed, a full stop or other. It won't make any difference. That number's still changing here, but I'm not seeing the commas or the full stops over here. So our next step is to provide a condition for these cells as to whether I want to display them or not. So now with these cells selected, we'll go up to Conditional Formatting and then come down to Manage Rules, and we want to create a new rule. So we're showing formatting rules for the current selection, new rule, and then we want to select Format Only Cells That Contain. And from down here, we'd use the drop down and select Specific Text. So that specific text in this case is a full stop. So if there is a full stop value, we want to do something with it. So the next step is to click on Format and tell it what formatting we want to use. So what we're going to do is we'll select No Color and go OK and OK. And then apply that and go OK. So these cells have a value of 2. There's a value of 2 there, and so they have a full stop. If I do that again, these ones have a value of, this one has a value of 3 because there's a 3 there. That's how that works. Pretty cool, isn't it? However, What I'm going to do now is just to demonstrate something else to you, I'm going to select those again, and I'm going to make that a little bit larger. And now you'll see that you can still see that full stop. Be it ever so small, you can still see that full stop. So the next thing that we can do to avoid that, I mean it is very small, there's a couple of things you can do. You can change the condition. I'll just select those again, and if I go to the home ribbon conditional formatting, down to manage rules, and I manage that, I edit the rule. At the same time as looking for that full stop, I can also format the font. And so what I might do in this case, and I could do it on a cell by cell basis, is I could choose a color. For example, that's closer to what we're looking for, is that one there, and go OK, and then go OK, and apply. That's closer. You hopefully should be getting the idea now. So let's have a look at another color we could use. Home ribbon, conditional formatting, manage rules, select the rule, edit the rule, and let's format the color. And so go to more colors, and you can change the color there. So another way of doing this even is ideally we don't have even a full stop or a comma. So what we can do is go in and format these cells and look for, so home, conditional formatting, and manage rules, edit the rule. We can also look for we should be able to look for a space. So I've just put in a space there, and I'm going to format the color of that to automatic is fine. OK, apply, and OK. And what we'll need to do is to change where there is it says a full stop, we change it to a space. Where there's a full stop, we change it to a space. Let's do that for a couple of them, and you can see that for 1 and a 3 in this case, and it's accepting a space. And so where it's a space, you won't see anything at all, and where there is a comma, it will be the same color as the shading. So this is quite a tricky little exercise, but it can be quite rewarding, and it just adds another dimension to your skill set and what you can do when you're developing quizzes and solutions. So I'm just going to change each of those to a space, another one to a space, and another space. 3 more to do. So the first one, where I use the full stop, works fine where you've got a fairly generic sort of a background colour. But where you've got lots of different colours, it can be a bit tricky. So there's 2 ways of doing it. So let's have a look, and there you can get the idea of how it can change. That's using a random number between 1 and 3, but I've only got 9 cells that I'm working with, so it makes it nice and simple. So how could we use this in a quiz? Well, let's move this over now. I'm going to move over in my sheet, and I'm going to ask a question. So let's make this questions. Now this is a very simplistic version of typing a question. So you would probably type an actual question. It might be, I don't know, what is the Queen's first name? England's Queen's first name, or something like that. Or what is the name of Queen Elizabeth's husband? So let's say 1 + 1 equals, as an example. Now over here you can put in, this is where you put in the answer, so I might actually put in a a border around that so that I can see that there would be a space for an answer to go. And we'll put up there answer. And I'll just activate a little bit to make it a little bit tidier. So I've got my questions in this column, I've got an answer here. So let's say that equals 2. And now let's just work on this particular cell, and instead of looking at referring to the random number, let's refer it to a particular answer over here. So what we can do is if we get this one correct, let's do another formula, equals if this cell here, if this cell, open bracket, if this cell equals, in this case we want it to equal 2, comma, if that is true, then we want a value of 1. And if it's false, we want a value of 0. And press enter. So I've got a value of 1 there. Can have another question. 2 plus 2 equals. So what does that equal? It equals 4. And then we can have another formula here. Let's just drag that down for a moment. So we've got an equals. If this cell equals, in this case it equals a 4. Okay, so we can add up column, we can do it like that. So if this value has a 1, so let's now direct this cell, and that's way too big to work with. So we'll say, and actually it's probably easier to work up here because we've got a background in that cell. So if, in this case, we're going to be looking at a value over here, which is N3, so I'm going to get rid of the F3. I'm no longer going to look at this cell here. So I'm going to delete that and click on that value. So if that one equals a 1, then we'll repeat that. So let's go enter now. And calculate. And so that cell will remain visual all the time. So I hope that that gives you some idea of how you can use conditional formatting to reveal. Let's have a look at this one here. Let's bring down this one and refer, instead of to F3, delete that, let's refer to this one. If that one equals a 1, and let's click on that. So they do both equal 1, so they're going to remain displayed. So which one? So that one should remain visible, and that one should remain visible. And is that happening? Yes, it is. So again, remember, you can use a combination of these. You can use a random value that all the cells look at, or you could then individually select some that will be dependent on whether they answer the question correctly. So the questions don't have to be simple 1 and 1, 1 plus 1 equals. They can be questions related to a topic, a sport, general knowledge, or a question that you might have in English or science, for example. So there you go. That is conditional formatting. And if you want to use the image behind it, you don't have to. If you want to use the image that is behind the shaded areas and then reveal them, you will need to remember to select an image that's not too large. If I put a really large image in there, and now let me demonstrate that to you. So I go to page layout for my background, I'll delete that background and I'll get another one, and I'll put one in from file. Let me choose one from my pictures folder, and a really large one. So there's one of a spider. If I put that one in there, it's huge. And you only really appreciate how big that image is when I delete the background. So this is a huge image, and so it's really not suitable So this would be probably a couple of thousand by a couple of thousand pixels. That's not going to really give you anything. So again, you're looking for an image that would be approximately 600 by 400 is a good size. You can go a little bit bigger than that, but you can see a 600 by 400 will give you an image about the size as a background in your spreadsheet, and it will give you enough area to work around it and provide questions where you could relate it to some questions that you might put to the user to use in the situation of maybe a game or a quiz. So I hope you enjoyed this and can use these skills in your project.